produced the book, we published the book with the title Building Brazil, Proactive Urban Renewal of Informal Settlements. Here we show that informal settlements, favelas, have a potential. And we were looking at favelas as a model case of how to build sustainable cities, how to build cities that are more compact, that work without cars, and that have lively social networks. The second study I already mentioned was on Cidade de Deus, and for us it was a transition between the study of informality, the study of favelas, but also mass housing, because it started as social housing in the 60s, and I will show that it's actually a mix. And now in the third year, we are looking at Minha Casa MInha Vida, which is the biggest program for social housing in Brazil, probably also in the world in this dimension. It is interesting to look at Cidade de Deus because it started in the 60s with the goal to provide housing for the people that were removed from the favelas. It's a quite complex story, but it reminds us how today mass housing is done. You see a suburban model, I can say, with individual houses, but there are also some conjuntos, there are also some blocks, and the history is quite complex. It started in 1966 when the first people moved in, and after the military dictatorship, it became maybe one of the most violent areas of Rio, if not Brazil. But then, interesting enough, with the pacification that happened already in 2009, this area completely changed again. And now they even have their local currency, the Cidade de Deus money, that reinforces the community spirit. And when we went there, we realized this is a city now. Yeah? It's a lively city. And it's not anymore periphery, it's actually nowadays a central position, close to the future Olympic Games. This is just to show quickly the impact of the transformation, because we are interested in morphology. We're interested in the urban form, in the physical space, because we believe that the way the physical space is set up is influencing also the social life. This is the original layout, and nowadays it looks like this. Quite amazing how there is an additional layer. Sometimes you can still see the little houses, but it's now a quite compact, a dense city. We call this, it's a city within the city, inside the city. Here you see how gradually this developed from the single family unit. So with this study, we were inspired to look at Minha Casa MInha Vida. You see an image, a part of the installation we have downstairs, only to show a little bit of how this looks like. Well, there are different phases of the Minha Casa MInha Vida, and I cannot show you all of that. There are also block buildings, and this is also one way Minha Casa looks like. And we have to say, I cannot give a whole introduction on Minha Casa MInha Vida, but we have to say this program was inaugurated in 2009, just after the economic crisis. And one part of it, one goal of the program is also to stimulate the economy, which was a very important goal for Brazil at that moment. And on the other hand, the goal was to provide housing for low-income segments. There are three different parts. One is dealing with the lowest segment, 0 to 3 minimum salaries. The second one, 3 to 5 minimum salaries. And the last one is 5 to 9, I think, minimum salaries. From 2009 until now, I think around 1.2 million units were already delivered. So this is a significant number. It's a very ambitious program, and I just said worldwide maybe it's the biggest program for the low-income segment. So in this sense, it is very successful to give access to housing, accesso a moradia. But we are now saying, now after access to housing, how can we give access to the city? Because that's still another story. How can this, which is already providing, you know, an elementary unit for low-income people, how can this become a city? This is our task. And what is the city? What do we need for the city? This is a discussion. It's an open discussion, and it's a collective. We have to be aware. Do we need public spaces? Can we live together, or do we need to be privatized? But we think we have to strengthen the collective part of the program. And actually, there is one portion of the program called Minha Casa MInha Vida Entidades that is providing a certain amount of the money for associations, for popular movements, where they can actually develop their own version, their own concept of Minha Casa MInha Vida. This is a big potential, entidades, because it's not the system with the big corporations, the big construction firms. It's organized by the people. And we think this should be strengthened. Laetitia talked about the cooperative tradition in Switzerland. You cannot imagine that 100 years ago Switzerland was a poor country, and the cooperatives were created by then, and now they are very powerful. This is a system that works against speculation, where people can control more their own territory, let's say. And I think this is a good impact, this is a good proposal even for discussions that we will have today in the context of the manifestations. I also want to mention that 60 years ago, in the 50s, the topic, the theme of social housing was the most important topic for the architects, for the modernist architects at that time. Pedregulho, an exemplary project, was conceived before Le Corbusier did his Unité d'Habitation, and it was the avant-garde. So social housing, popular housing, was the avant-garde of culture. And we believe it is possible to think again how we can consider social housing, popular housing as a culture, as a main component of the culture. That's why we started first a study on Brazilian culture. Because what are foreigners doing with Brazilian program? So we first thought, let's see, what is Brazilian? What is Brazilianness? And we started to think about what we call APB, with a reference to MCMV, which is popular music, but not for everybody. You know, MCMV is has a wide sector from pop music to traditional folk music, samba. It's a mix, it's a hybrid, and even it has also aspects from abroad. You know, it was developed in the context of Tropicalia, when they were also bringing in elements from abroad. And we just did a catalog of elements, observations that we found interesting, all from one material. People say favelas are ugly, but everything in one material can be very strong. The beach is a super popular element, of course. The blue shade we found everywhere, you know, these blue elements everywhere. That defines the aesthetics, business in a truck, activity that is quite important. Toboggan, for us this is the most typical element for popular architecture, coming from traditional architecture, translated into modernism, becoming a typical modernist element. You saw Lucio Costa's housing project, and then again translated to the favelas. Again, you can find the toboggans in the favelas. And Carnival, I could continue endlessly. Now, APB was important, APB was important as a kind of backdrop, yeah? And then we were looking at 4 sites. One in Rio de Janeiro, one in Sao Paulo, one in Brasilia and one in Parauapebas, Pará. And each site has a title. The first site, Rio de Janeiro, is Colônia Juliano Moreira, in the close to, or in Jacarepaguá, close to Barra da Tijuca. And we call this Nova CIdade because it is the new central place of Rio de Janeiro, and it would be fantastic to introduce more popular and social housing there. It already happens in Colonia. Just to keep in mind the image of this new expansion zone of Barra da Tijuca. I don't have a pointer, but you see we are here. Lucio Costa declared this will be the future urban center in his plan for Barra da Tijuca, and actually it is becoming, with the future facilities for the Olympic Games, really close to it, an area in full development, and we think we should have exemplary social housing there. It's related to a fantastic, maybe I will sit down, a fantastic natural reserve, Parque Estadual da Pedra Branca, and it has even very old historic buildings, patrimonia, because it was a former psychiatric colony, and nowadays it's still operating as a psychiatric clinic. We have some half informal buildings there, also some social housing projects, and the Fundação Bento Rubião organized together with Cooperativa Esperança a development there, which is the Minha Casa MInha Vida entidades development. So things are already happening, and we identified one site that is located more to the urban, so where we are sitting, it's more the urban part, looking at Parque Pedra Branca. The second site we called Margem Urbana. It's located in Sao Paulo, in the periphery of Sao Paulo. And as you know, in Sao Paulo, the favelas are in the periphery mostly. It's not like in Rio. And they're actually forming the urban edge. And we think we should invest in the urban edge. In yellow, orange, you see the favelas in Sao Paulo, and we are located in Brasilândia, in an area called Cabuço de Baixo. We did a competition with the MAS Urban Design Zurich 2 years ago within the Renova competition. Renova is similar to Mora Carioca. It's a competition for favela upgrading. And we won one site, we won the competition for Cabuço de Baixo with an urban project. You just see an image. And this was developed during the last 2 years. Then the government changed, and now they say, forget the project, we will do everything with Minha Casa MInha Vida program now. So we have to start again to think about this place with the Minha Casa MInha Vida directrices, or with this context. But it's difficult because it has topography. It looks like favelas in Rio de Janeiro because it has the hills, right? And how to implement Minha Casa MInha Vida with topography is very, very difficult. And I think it didn't really happen so far. The typical problems of favelas have flooding problems, landslide problems, desligamentos. So all that has to be resolved together with this program, and we think that the urban edge is important, and it should be a place where you stay and you don't have to commute all the time. It also has to become a city with commerce, with social activity, and so on. The third site, located in Brasilia, we call satélite sustentável. We think the concept of the satellites can be interesting if we have good public transportation that is connecting the satellites, and if we have inside the satellites a social mix, different people living together, not only the favela satellite and the rich satellite. We want to increase the social mix, and we also would like to have all the services a city needs. So it's a more autonomous place. It's in the very south. It's even not on the map. An area called Santa Maria. It's already for low-income segments. This area, Santa Maria. Just to remind us, you know, the history of Brasilia. The history of Brasilia is a big testing site, you know, and we went there with the whole class, and we are looking at different typologies in the different satellites. So we were more interested in the satellites than in the plano piloto, because it's like a building exhibition over 60 years where you see did this work, this didn't work, and here you see also the advertisement todos beneficiados. And in the beginning, they did this temporary town which was called Cidade Livre. Now it's called Núcleo Bandeirante, the first satellite town out of wood. We discovered that. We thought this is quite fascinating because this is really like a city also, but it doesn't exist anymore. Cidade Livre, and Santa Maria is located very close to Núcleo Bandeirante, to this very first beginning of Brasilia. Here you can see an image. It's very fragmented, the way it is happening. Also, the Minha Casa MInha Vida, when it is built, often it's just fragments, right? And we think we should bring these fragments together to form again a whole piece, right? We have to anticipate what will happen in the future because the fragmented city is a problem. Last site started with the reflection. Brazil is a big country, and we cannot just focus on the metropolitan areas, you know. And actually, Minha Casa MInha Vida is often implemented in the north. So, and actually realized in the northern areas, like here in Paraupebas, Pará, we can find the fastest growing cities of Brazil, where, for example, 12,000 people per year come from all over the country. So they need a lot of housing. You know, they constantly have to build. Very difficult task. And of course, there is also the Minha Casa MInha Vida program. Here you can see it's more or less on the edge. It is on the edge of the Amazon forest. This incredible, rich natural reserve that is important for the whole world. And this city is there because of the mine of Carajás. It's the biggest open pit iron mine of the world, and you can imagine the impact of this mine. I think 60% of this material is shipped to Asia, and as a side product, the city is growing. This is interesting. The mine, a little town for higher employees, the airport, they call it the upper city, and Paraupebas, they call it the lower city, where the workers are living. And here, quickly, how it is growing, 2006, 2008, 2010, incredible. It basically doubled, and sad enough, the forest is constantly cut, and they have to reforestate, you know, this topic. They try to establish also a national park there where they control it, but it's very difficult. Because it's so growing so fast, informal settlements happen there, of course, built out of wood. They remind us to the images we found from Brasilia, where they were building out of wood. And it was also reminding us to our other study, to the study of Cidade de Deus. And I just show you a comparison between Minha Casa MInha Vida in an area called Bairro dos Mineiros and Cidade de Deus, you know. And it's very strange how already, it's 3 months old, they started to informalize this, change it. They personalize their houses, of course, make it more beautiful, and they add, of course, they add commerce. maybe even bigger than the house, the commerce here. Probably at someday, maybe it will look like this, maybe, probably. This is again CIdade de Deus. This is just to make us think about, you know, how does the city look like in 60 years or in 100 years? We have to anticipate the future. So this is it, the introduction. And now I would like to start with the discussion.